Hello and welcome to In the Pocket. My name's Jonny.
And my name's Chris.
Two totally average bass players, and we're here to talk all about that bass, as well as answering your questions at home. Each week we take a look at the latest news and maybe break down some tones, all to give you the lowdown on the low end. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got a wonderful guest for you today. I was going to say waiting in the wings, but if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see his wonderful face already.
Yes.
Before I introduce you properly, I do have a little poem to introduce our guest for today. Okay. Here we go. Through Deathclock's rage, your Hanson sway, laying down the low end, and he's here today. If you don't know him, you're missing. Ladies and gents, it's Pete Griffin.
Wow. Can I use that everywhere I go?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dude.
And thanks for having me.
Welcome onto the show. We've been meaning to put this together for a while as we've kind of crossed paths before. And and I'm so glad that we're here today to make it happen. For those of you at home that aren't aware of Pete, what are you doing? I first became aware of you, Pete, through those demos that you did with Fender, how long ago was that now?
I've done them for about 10 years, kind of on and off.
You've done loads.
I'm so happy with those. That's very, very lucky. They could literally get anybody in the world to do that, and they pick me. So I'm quite blessed to have that fall in my lap, and it's been a lot of fun. And doing those things, I'm sure you guys know this. Demo videos, it seems like, it's really easy. You just play the bass. It's got to be the cleanest playing in the world, right? Like you need to show just the bass, like not any of your finger noise or things like that. You really got to think about it, and then you got to read the script and everything else. So it's actually not easy, but it's rewarding. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get every bugger under the sun commenting if one thing's wrong. They're like,
yes, boy, I stopped reading those a long time ago.
Well, they fuel me.
That's good.
Weirdly love reading. I've had some proper horrible ones recently.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what it is. I sit there going while I'm reading them. Yeah.
I pin them.
Well, you're doing something right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it.
Johnny gets them
getting a
even
reaction.
Worse. Exactly. Johnny gets them. Johnny gets them really bad, and he pins the comments and everything.
Yeah.
That's smart, man. Interaction.
Yeah.
That's what people want.
We're getting it.
Yeah.
Speaking of interaction, we're going to start things off, Pete, with 3. We always say quick fire questions at the start, but they're never quick fire, and we don't need them to be quick fire. So our intro questions for you: can you tell us, please, what is your number 1 bass?
Wow. Just because it's sitting here and has such emotional attachment. This one right here.
Ooh.
This Japanese P bass, which seems somewhat unremarkable from the 90s, and it's pretty beat up. It's got like sticker burn on it. I don't know if you can see that right around there, things like that. But this bass belonged to my sort of mentor / hero, Dan Bingley, who when I was in high school, when I was a freshman, he was a senior. So 3-4 years difference. And watching him play this bass made me fall in love with the instrument. He later passed away, which is why I now have it, only a few years after that. And so it was sort of both, the initial falling in love with a thing and then sort of this somewhat tragic, incredibly tragic thing that happened. Really drove me to want to play all the time. And then I got this bass maybe about 10 or 15 years ago from his family. And it's been it doesn't leave the house. It really kind of changed my playing. I was a jazz bass guy, and then I got this thing, and I was like, okay, P basses are the way to go. So this has become the most prized possession out of all of them for sure.
Beautiful. And there's something about those there's something about having this connection to an instrument as well that just makes it feel so much better. It's unexplainable. Sometimes I find that kind of thing.
Yeah, without getting too, spiritual about it, I hear him in this bass, even through my fingers, and yes, I am stealing a whole bunch of stuff from him because he was my initial biggest influence, but there are times when like a certain tone comes out and I'm like, oh, hi, Dan. He's still in there somewhere. It's really kind of cool.
Love that. Love that. Incredible. Good choice. Good choice.
All right. Yeah.
Now, I'm waiting for some more good choices now. Number 2 question is, can you describe your bass playing in 3 words?
Wow. Just because you gave me about 5 minutes to think about this, the initial ones that come to mind, and it's sort of been a bit more of a, this is way more than 3 words already. It's sort of been a bit of not a lane change, but a shift in my entire approach recently. So the 3 words I will say are clean, clear, and supportive.
Clean
Very nice.
and clear.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And
Yes.
I've heard demos of you playing where it's not so clean. They're getting some amazing drive sounds as well. So what's made that change?
Well, I don't necessarily mean clean like that. So yeah, that's actually a good thing to point out. I meant more no extra noises. I did another interview recently, and I remembered that when I took lessons with the other sort of mentor that put me on the path that I'm on when I was about 20 years old, so years ago, it was he really kind of made me focus on the real basics and like playing whole notes and playing to a click. He was like, it was Steve Rodby, who was Pat Metheny's producer and bass player. And he goes, no one's going to pay you to take slap solos, man. And I saw the reason I met him was actually saw him give a speech. And he goes, I play bass as if the producer is listening to my track soloed the entire time. Oh. And I was like, yes, that exact face. Like,
thank you very much. I'll be stealing that one forever.
Right. But it'll kick your ass, man. Like it's if you really think about that. And a lot of stuff I've been doing more recently with this composer, Bear McCreary, a lot of TV and movie stuff, because it's strings, right, or horns, they have such extra control over the beginnings and ends of their notes, right? They can fade it out. They can fade it in, right? We can't do really either of those things. We either let the note hang or we roll to get it to go up, but we can't, add breath or bow or anything, right? So the tail ends of notes and the spaces between notes and all that stuff, if that's not perfectly clean, that's like, hi, I'm the dumb bass player who's amongst an orchestra of masters, on this recording. And then an engineer has to go take all those extra noises out. So that's more what I mean by clean. Not necessarily undistorted.
That's so true. Like the little, you'd be very tempted to sort of, let's pretend you're playing an E and the next note is a C. So instead of, you'd be so tempted to have that little slide down, from the 7th fret of the A string down to the 3rd. And no one else would really care. But in that kind of land, that is unforgivable. That's like an disaster.
Yeah, and it's just a choice you have to make, right? It's like, okay, are the rest of the strings doing that? Or is that just you? Is it a clean movement? Any of these slides to hammer-ons to pull-offs, all those things, if you really start really focusing in on each of those little details, it changes so much about your inflection and the way you approach every single note.
Yeah. And it's... Sorry, Chris.
No, go on.
After you.
First.
After
me. Sure? Are you sure?
No, I've changed my mind. After me.
Okay, after you.
I forgot my point now. Damn it! No,
brilliant. I'm gonna talk over you now. Can you stop interrupting me while I'm interrupting you? Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I was just gonna jump in and say to go one further. It's just jumped in my mind, and there's a wedding band that I do a lot of, sort of like my most amount of weddings with, and it's like a 3-piece band and some tracks. And the singer once said to me, don't do anything he called it silly, but running around the fretboard because I'm pitching to you. I've got your bass really loud in my ear mix, and when you're just playing a B and I'm singing a B, it's you I'm locking into. It's the bass. It's almost not even his guitar. And ever since he said that, everything was 8th notes of a pick. And you're not getting. Yep. I will be felt and not heard. I'm got.
That's the supportive part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was me. I'm gone. I'm gone.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just like Homer Simpson fading back into the.
That literally made all of my arrogance and ego just going, okay.
Yeah, it's who we are ultimately, or in my mind should be, right? And that's that supportive thing is we're there, but we're not like constantly calling attention to ourselves. We're helping each other out.
Somebody said to me once, yeah, exactly. Someone said to me once that like, I was always like, oh yeah, I'm not actually that good because I can't do all this stuff. And he was like, dude, like you could be playing like the most basic thing and still be a good bass player. Like, number one, time and place for, any fancy stuff. And number two, that's not always the role of it. So you need to know when to dial it back and know, and the dialing it back, simple stuff can, like some people have commented on videos I've done before where it's just very simple pick playing. And they're like, I cannot get that right. And I'm like, oh, that just seems like the normal thing. And I'm like, oh, like that's where that mentality comes into it, where it's just very simple, and getting the simple things right is what could make you a great bass player. Really, you don't have to be flashy all the time,
and get you gigs. It's that's the big one. Is chops are no longer that special. I hate to say it. For me, I say it was like the first 5 years of playing was okay. Let's see everything I can do on this. And then luckily I had Steve Robbie be like, yeah, that's great. But now if you can't really master the very small beginnings of it, all that extra sprinkly, flashy stuff on top, useless.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not doing it in time and all that stuff. So there is something to be said about the restraint.
What's that Marcus Miller quote? There's like a Marcus Miller thing where it's like, you can do whatever you want, but if you miss that one, when we come back around, oh, no.
Yes.
Like you can do the flashiest drum fill, the flashiest bass thing. If we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's nothing. Don't even go home.
That's so funny. Now I gotta plug it in and even play something. Because I use this really simple song to teach this Maceo Parker song. That's literally just. And then it does that through a blues, right? So there's an entire bar of break in every single one of those. So I'll start teaching every different level of student. Okay, in that break, do something, right? And for the earlier ones, just going, that's hard enough for them. But some of them want to go, and then get back to it. You got to get back to it, right? Yeah. And so I'll sit there and be like, all right, try a bigger fill. You missed the one. Right. And so we got it. It's all these, everything's a different knob. We're kind of like, all right, let's turn up the flashy knob, but is that affecting the stability knob and all these other things? So it's really important to, exactly.
Can you, as a student, can you do the full song and leave that full bar of silence? Be like, I'm not going to play it.
Yes.
There's something in Lee Sklar about that, where he's talking about, like, it's like, I can't remember what song it is. Relatively simple song. It could be like Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins or something, which has loads of space, but there's plenty of opportunities to do a thing, but he's very much like no. I'm just doing my thing. Everyone else can dance around me. Just like, yep, I'm holding it down.
Yeah. Which means that anytime he does head snap, right? It's like, what the hell was that? Yeah. One tiny little thing that steps out. And that's really where I'm coming from now. It's so cliche, right? It's like, oh, less is more with bass players, blah, blah. How many times have we heard that? But to really, really embrace that has really kind of changed things for me in a lot of ways. And a lot of it is playing with incredible drummers. Right. With Death Clock, we've got Gene Hoglan, who is a god of metal drumming, like a literal living god of the instrument in terms of that. And largely because his feet are the lead singer of any band that he's in.
Yeah.
Right? His kick drums are the loudest things in the world. They're taking up a large portion of our frequencies. So rather than fighting that, which I will lose and very handily lose, I kind of go, okay, where are my spaces in between? Right? Where are the spots that I like? How can I add to that? And then I wind up playing way fewer notes and I'm doing way less busyness. And Gene from the beginning and Brendan from Death Clock have said when everybody else is going, I should be going.
Yeah.
right? And at first I was like, no, I can do it. Look, I can do it. Check it out. And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. It sounds like shit.
Because you're all you're not a bass. You're all transient in that point, aren't you?
Exactly.
You just
no note shows up.
That exact moment happened to me in the studio once as well. That's exact moment where I was matching it, and they were like, "Maybe it'll sound better doing less." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it did."
And then the sonic result sounds like you're playing all those notes, right?
Yeah.
Because the kick drum is acting as your finger in that way. The note is there. But the re-triggering isn't us. It's the actual like punch in the face of the kick drum. So we still sound awesome. Yeah. It sounds like we're doing the heavy lifting, but in fact we're doing half or a quarter as many notes, and the end result is so much better. And it's taken me this long to finally like embrace that.
Dude,
but you don't know until you know. Like
exactly.
No one's gonna,
and it's an ego thing.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. And
it's an ego battle for sure.
You learn so much from the gig you get fired from. Like 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I've learned so much more from the gigs I've not been asked back to, and I've been like, well, why not? And it could be, it could be literally just anything. It can be or it'll be massive things that we've just talked about, like overplaying, even though you don't think you're overplaying because they're used to a different standard of bass player who really leaves a lot of space. You could just be 5 minutes late. There's loads and loads of reasons, but you learn.
Who knows? Yeah,
you learn. You don't know something until you've got to learn it yourself. It's like, what's that term? Is it like soft lessons and hard lessons? The soft lesson is like you're telling you're someone listening to this podcast, for example, they're hearing you give advice. That I believe that's called like a soft lesson. You're being told the information, but a hard lesson is like you've gone and learnt it. Like you should always bring a spur strap to a gig. That's a soft
power
lesson.
Cable.
Yeah, a power cable.
IEC power cable. There are 2 in my trunk because I have in fact showed up without them.
Exactly, that's a hard lesson for you because you may have been taught. I bet you've been told several times. Always have a spare cable. But it was
more like I'm the asshole who shows up and then has to like ask someone to like take it out of their computer monitor or something like that. Luckily it is a widely available cable, but I'm like, hi guys, I learned all the material, but my amp has no power. So there are like a lot of those the hard lesson thing. I call them musical ass kickings. Right. It's a lot of times where you find yourself in a situation that you maybe should not have put yourself in to begin with. And then you fail and you go home and you make sure that never happens again.
You fail.
Right. And it's exactly. And it's horrible. And in that moment, but you can turn it into a very important learning thing. When I was in high school, I was playing with this piano player named Ehud Asheri, who is basically like a prodigy. He was incredible then, and he's still incredible. He's making really incredible stuff now. But I had to keep up with him, right? Early on, and I was not a prodigy. I was okay. I liked it a lot. I was putting the time in, but it wasn't, I wasn't playing it at 4, So I went a few years later, and he was hosting a jam session at Smalls in New York City, which is this very small jazz club, but very prestigious. And I get up and I play through a blues and I do great, and I'm on upright, which I'm okay at. I'm much more comfortable with this. And then he goes, all right, let's try rhythm changes. And I'm like, I kind of know what that is. Sure. Yeah, let's do it. And we get about a chorus half through and he stops the band and he goes, all right, let's play another blues. And I'm just like, like I just fold into myself and go home and practice rhythm changes for 6 months. And now that's never, ever going to happen again. And like, yes, that moment sucked. And in that moment, I was so mad at him for calling me out, but he was 100% right. And I was 100% wrong. And now I've fixed it.
And
been there. Absolutely.
Those lessons,
exactly.
They only come around the hard way, and it's when you're not looking for them. That's when it happens.
I've had a guitarist literally look at me dead in the eye on stage and go, "You don't know these songs, do you?" Because I'd like this set list that had songs that I've played a few times, but I've not like sat down and learnt the actual bass line. And he was a guitarist and a bass player. and he
Oh.
knew
Oh,
he
no.
knew I didn't know him.
So he knows the
well.
parts too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knew it was like, like it could be something like "Isn't She Lovely" by Stevie Wonder has has just chords you can follow, but the actual song has a really nice. There's bits of
Connected
chromatic
baseline.
bits that move between the chords, and it's actually quite a big part of the song. Really, somebody didn't know that bit.
Yeah.
And,
Now I got to go back and make sure I'm playing that right.
and that was the third song of the set, or even the second song of the set. And we had like 2 hours worth of material, and it just made me feel this big. And it was horrible.
And that sucks. And that's what people are so afraid about in terms of getting into this to begin with, right? It's sort of, my wife is one of the bravest, strongest people I know. She talks to strangers when I'm like all shy and stuff like that. But public speaking to her is a fear as on the level of death, like it is for a lot of people. The whole getting on stage and possibly making an ass of yourself is terrifying and something we have to all get past ultimately, and those moments of going, wow, I literally just fell on my face right there, but I'm okay. Nobody died. I'm still here. I still have the gig. I still own the bass. I can still, it's that pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and do better next time.
That's the thing. You got to be a good cleaner when in this game. You've got to dust yourself off so much.
Yeah. I thought when you said that, I thought, why do you pooed yourself or something like that? What are we,
guys? I need help.
we'll be right back.
It's a story for a different podcast
after these messages.
Truth bombs and toilet bombs. Pete, I want to dig a little bit into your past a little bit and where it all began. So I wonder if you could tell the wonderful people why you initially picked up the bass.
Yeah, it was sort of arbitrary, to be honest. It was, I had played trumpet through elementary school, like a lot of bass players, apparently, Flea. I was talking to Mark from Bass Nerds. He said him too. And some other stuff. So weird because they have nothing to do with each other, but hey, and I was good, but it was still homework, I was like first chair or whatever, but it wasn't like in love with it. And then my parents got me a bass for Christmas when I was about 13. I had been asking for a new instrument, a guitar, a keyboard, or something called a bass. I don't know. What is this thing? It sort of looks like a guitar. And they got it. It was a red Guitar Research PJ, I believe. And I opened the box and like light is coming in through the window and angels are singing. So it literally was like, well, there goes the rest of my life. So it was pretty immediate. And then, like I was saying, hearing and meeting Dan and seeing the way he just approached the instrument and just how cool he was, really. Like he was the cool older kid in school, and I was this nerdy, band geek. So it really sort of took off from that, and then also realizing very quickly that it really fit my personality, and that in hindsight, my brother is about 10 years older than me, and he showed me a lot of much cooler stuff that I would have been exposed to as a kid, including Genesis, Police, Peter Gabriel, stuff like that. But the big one that I always point to is before I ever knew what a bass was, I heard "Walking on the Moon," and the bass and the song that song is the bass line, right? Da, da, da. I heard that, and I remember going, whatever that is, I want to do that. Whatever that sound is, that real like kind of, it's not flashy, it's not a lot of notes, but it's like it's singable. It's the hook of the the sub hook of the song. And so before I ever knew that this was called a bass, I was pretty drawn to those kind of, supporting roles.
Yeah.
So I think that's, it all kind of came together through all of these things. It was meant to be, I guess.
Destiny took control.
Yes.
And so from there, you're obviously now living in LA, and you moved to LA from how were you when you made that move? When you were like, this is what I want my life to be now. I'm going to commit full time. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in New York. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, which was amazing because of the access that I had. I used to go see really incredible shows all the time at places that I've now played, which is always kind of cool. I just was back there in New York and going, oh yeah, I saw the Flecktones at Irving Plaza and, Modesta Martin Wood in this park and all this other really kind of, super influential stuff early on. And then I went to school near Chicago, where I actually just was, at Northwestern, which was also in a suburb of Chicago. And liked it there and made some amazing friends, but didn't really break through into the music scene as much as I'd like. And I had been visiting out here in LA and realized it was, a paradise in terms of the weather. And in the early 2000s, before everything changed in the music industry, although everying does change in the music industry every 3 or 4 years. But starting then, it was really the initial shift away from CDs and labels and big money running everything and all of that. So moving out here seemed like the right thing to do at the time because it seemed like there was opportunity. And there was at first. And since then, I'm slowly seeing it being diminished, where now I have students who are constantly like, oh, well, I should move out to LA to do this professionally. And I'm like, oh, God, no. I barely have enough work to keep me going and my friends and my students and stuff like that. Well, it's not. Yes, there is part of that. But it's yeah, exactly. But it's also more like, we can all kind of work our own little bubbles a little better now. I think, you can be a big fish in a small pond and do a lot better with that, thanks to the internet and thanks to things like that. And then if it does become time where you have to move to a bigger place to have these things available to you, then maybe think that. But so that's how I wound up out here. And that was 25 years ago. And I haven't looked back.
That is so interesting. And you kind of preempted where I wanted this conversation to go a little bit, because I saw you moved out to LA. And I know normally in America, people are like, I'm going to go to LA to make it big, or I'm going to go to Nashville, and it seems like those are the big places to go. And I was curious, is geography still nowadays so important, and what it is about those connections out there that's, what is it?
I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to that. I feel like things have changed so much. I know tons of amazing touring and or session musicians that live in LA, but they don't live in LA. Sure. I don't even technically live in LA. I'm out in the Valley. But I'm close enough that I can get to any of these things. But I know a lot of musicians, even before the pandemic, and then definitely during the pandemic, who kind of figured out, wait a minute, I'm not really working in California that much. We'll rehearse in California and then we go on tour. So why am I paying California rent prices? And things like that. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I know a lot of people who kind of secretly moved to other places and didn't really tell anybody so that they would still get the work. They'd come into town when they'd have the work, and then they'd go back and not pay the rent, especially the guys that were in bands that were touring, 6-8 months out of the year. You go live near an airport somewhere and you'll be fine, know, and you'll save a ton of money, and might be in a place where that is more suited to who you are. If you like, a different vibe than what LA has. So it has changed a bunch like that, but how do you make a name for yourself these days? That uses the internet, or you go do gigs, or both. It's very, very confusing.
We had the exact same thing when we had Jamie Lewis on a few months ago now. He lives in Nevada. I can't remember which part of Nevada he lives in. Mm-hmm. Or does he live in Arizona? No, it is Nevada. So he lives in Las Vegas, I think, or just outside. But when he has the and also a lot of his business is online with his tuition website. But when he has the work in LA, he has a lockup in LA with a bass and all that sort of stuff, and he just flies in, does the session. The equipment stays in the locker, and he just goes back, because what's the point of? And you even better point when you said, if you're a touring musician and you're gone for 5, 6, 7, 8 months of the year, why would you bother renting or owning property in an expensive area like California or something like that? There's just no point, is there? Mm-hmm. But there's an interesting part me and Jonny wanted to talk about, really, where you mentioned about moving over to LA. And then within about a year, if I got that right, or just after a year, you began working with Hanson and off you go.
It was a couple of years in. It was,
Okay,
I
couple
moved
of
here
years.
in 2001, and I
Yeah.
got it in 03. But yeah, you're pretty right.
Okay.
That's great research. Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they talk about the story, is they say just that. I moved here and then I did this. But no one ever talks about the and then I bit. You know, the bit in the middle of you move somewhere, you could have been a big fish in a smaller pond. Now you're a small fish in a huge pond. We would basically like to know what happened in that gap between moving, starting from scratch essentially, and then landing what we would all consider to be a very big gig. How did you do it back then? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, this is a long time ago, so a lot of this almost doesn't apply.
Well, that's why we'd like to know it, and then perhaps later on.
But a lot of it does.
Yeah,
a lot of it absolutely does too. The part that absolutely does was survival. Right, I got out here and I was a college grad, and I had a degree in music and all this stuff, and I was naive enough to be like, here are gigs. You know, I thought that was going to happen, right?
They lied to me as well. They lied to me as well.
Yeah, really. You know, I go to LA, and you know, it's like you just walk down the street and someone goes, "Hey, are you a bass player?"
I have a degree in session musicianship.
Yeah,
really?
yeah, actually, yeah, totally. And even with that, they wouldn't care. So I realized I had to break in. Right. You know, I had to start at zero, really. So I got other jobs. I was delivering sandwiches for a while. I worked at a record store, which was actually pretty great. Things like that. And then fairly quickly, I was working at MI. Somehow I knew I was just getting into bands and playing with anybody that would have
Impossible.
me.
Yeah.
Yes. No, sorry. Musicians Institute, MIT, some people call it. But it's really a big deal. It keeps getting bigger and bigger here. And the other one was back, just to get my name out there. Even before Craigslist existed, this is how long ago this is. There's a publication out here called Music Connection. And it would be at Guitar Center and everywhere else. I think it was like $3. And I'd get it, and they had the musician classifieds in the back. I would answer every single bass player wanted ad in there. I would send them an email. I'd give them a call, even if it sounded like utter garbage or nothing I was interested in whatsoever. I was like, I got to start somewhere, right? And I started driving all over California to go into like some really sketchy band practices in people's basements that I'm glad I made it out of. Without having my skin taken off or anything. But and that alone did, like, there are still connections I made back then that I still have today, strangely enough. And one of them got me working as a teacher's assistant at Musicians Institute, which was really an amazing kind of second education. I was reading charts. I was playing with completely wide range of levels of musicians. I did a lot of stuff for drum classes, where they would put a metronome into a guitar amp just to give it some volume. And I'd have to play to the metronome, not the drummer. Right? So as the drummer is learning, and maybe with the click and maybe not, and maybe has no sense of time whatsoever, I have to still play to the click. So it got that internal clock that I rely on a lot, really strong really quickly. And the reading and the playing with different people and all that stuff. And through that, I got on a list of musicians kind of overseen by this guy named Barry Squire, who actually passed away within the last year. And I'm pretty sad about it. Who then sets up all the auditions for artists that need a band. Right. And this in the early 2000s and still today, there was a lot of, you know, a pop star has an album that's recorded and each song is a completely different roster of musicians and different producers and all that stuff. She or he does not have a band. They're just an artist. So Barry would put together an audition and call in as many of each instrument that was required. And I started getting called back to a lot more of those and actually gotten the gigs. What's amazing is, again, state of the music industry back then. They would spend so much money on renting out SIR, which is like the most expensive rehearsal / recording place in town, for a weekend, getting 40 different bass players to come in, all the stuff, do 2 weeks of rehearsal for one show for a showcase for the label. And then the label would shelve the album and you'd never hear of that artist again. Yeah.
Wow.
And it happened more than once that I was working with.
It happened to a lot of people with Fueled by Ramen, didn't it? You know, who founded Paramore, not founded, but signed Paramore. There's a lot of rumors of other bands were shelved deliberately, so Paramore could have like a leg up. But it's so it's so crazy. Like it really is. I've been in bands with I've been in a band with a guy who's a little bit older than me, and he's from he worked in that LA session scene, and I'm assuming he must have worked at it at a similar period or to you when this was the common approach. Because he, while running this band, this is back in like 2021, something like that, we'd be doing weeks of rehearsals, weeks upon weeks of rehearsals when we had like one gig in like 4 months. And you'd be like, dude, this is not necessary. This is like, we need an afternoon, 2 days before the gig just to check it all and just trust everyone can learn everything at home. And it was like, no, everyone has to come here from 8 till 6 p.m. every day, and it's crazy how things have changed. But anyway, go on, please. I digress.
Yeah, and then, but like you're saying, and then nothing happens out of that. It's almost like the whole corporate mentality that luckily seems to not run the music industry as much anymore. Now it's a little bit more about the good stuff rises to the top, and now that everybody has access to getting it out there. Getting anybody to care about it is a whole other story. But so through back to Barry Squire and all these auditions, through him, I got the audition for Hanson. What was super cool about theirs is some of these auditions I had done here. I have to go pick up a CD. This is before MP3s were emailed and everything like that. I literally have to go drop by the rehearsal place, pick up a burned copy of the 2 songs or whatever. That usually, it was... Yeah, a lot of times, it was like, and then go home and learn it off a spinning CD player that I could not slow down, or now we have all that technology, or EQ out.
What do you mean you can't isolate the stems? What?
For those at home,
totally.
This is a CD.
What the hell is?
Exactly.
For those of you under the age of 25, this is a CD.
Yeah, it goes even deeper than that. So, and then I'd do that, and then I'd go to the audition. And I'd be the only live musician, and they'd have me play to that recording in front of a camera. And I'm just like, I hate all of this. Like, this is so not like, how are you supposed to get any sort of sense of me as a musician? And they're like, yeah, can you just like make it look like you're at a gig? And there's like 2 dudes in front of me with a camera and an empty stage, and there's bass on the track. And I'm just like, what the hell is this? Okay, all right, fine. I guess this is the vibe.
I've done exactly.
So when I did the Hanson audition, and that was again many more times than once. And then the Hanson guys were like, yeah, we'll just show you the songs when you show up. And I'm like, I already like this so much better. Like I'm already more comfortable not being able to prepare. As weird as that might be, but I had been so burnt out on the whole like. Well, okay, and then they're all looking at what you're wearing and what your hair looks. When I was doing that, I realized quickly, a lot of times, as soon as you walk in the room, they've made a decision.
Yeah,
they're looking for someone who fits the part that they have in mind, rather than someone who can play the part.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a million people that can play the part. Quite literally, in some cases, even some of the more difficult stuff. There's still, there's so many great players out there. So there is. So many other factors that you don't know about. So in some ways I was like, cool. And Hanson songs are not terribly complex. So, and the ones they picked were like these kind of cool 3-chord jam. And then when we cue, we go to this other part, and then we just got in and jammed on it for a good, 10 minutes each and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so much more comfortable with this. Like, this is kind of what I grew up on. Here's some chord changes, come up with a bass line, come up with a couple different levels of volume and dynamics and intensity. Here's when we break it down, maybe do it real simple, get bigger for the chord, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very second nature.
Yeah.
And so I think just by that alone, maybe that's how I got the gig with Hanson, was just me being like, sure, you're not going to tell me every note to play. Cool. I like that. Right. Mm-hmm. Rather than, oh no, I need all the information you can give me. So then I go ahead.
I was just going to say they wanted a bass player, not someone who can just play the bass. You know, they didn't just want someone to come and fill in the boots and just do that. They wanted a vibe, which is cool.
Because they're amazing musicians themselves too. You know, they really are. They're a very easy band to make fun of, but those guys are incredible. And they're still doing it too, which is so cool. So then I got that gig, and that was sort of the launching of pretty much everything. It put me right onto a tour bus. I skipped over van touring and had to come back to it many years later, which was quite the adjustment, let's say. And to now I know everything is on a different level, right? I will be in a van again, I'm sure. I'm doing a bandwagon tour, which in a couple months, which is somewhere in between. The bus tour that we're doing in Death Clock is going to be really nice because we'll have a nice bus, so there's lots of accommodations and all that stuff. It's all
you'll have a functioning lower back by the end of the tour. Whereas
you'd hope so. It depends on the driver and the roads. Ultimately, but so that was sort of my intro out here, and then after 3 years with Hanson. I got a call that Dweezil was looking for a bass player because he had put together his whole Zappa Play Zappa thing. Brian Beller was in the band. He was supposed to do it, and they postponed it enough times that Brian Beller got other gigs, not surprisingly. And Joe Travers, the drummer, who is also the vaultmeister for all of Zappa's recordings, had been to my apartment because I knew this bass player named Mark Meadows, he was very good friends with, and saw my collection of Zappa CDs on my thing, and he goes, "Oh wow, you really know this stuff." I'm like, "Dude, I really know this stuff." so when it came time to audition, he gave me a call, and somehow I got that gig, and that has sort of snowballed after that.
I wonder if how we talked about just then with the not necessarily the Hanson audition, but like pop musician auditions, where it's kind of like they've made a decision on the person before, as they've even walked in the door. I wonder if with the Zappa Plays Zappa gig, they'd made a decision on you before you walked in the door because they already knew, oh, this guy's a fan of the actual material. He's not just taking the gig. It'd be like if we were both going for that gig. I don't have a massive, extensive knowledge of Frank Zappa's material. So I would be learning material for the gig, whereas you would be like, oh no, I'm a massive fan of this material anyway, and they may have just instinctively wanted someone straight through the door with that knowledge. It'd be like if me and Jonny went for a Nickelback audition. I am destroying him. Absolutely. It's not even funny.
Nice.
I'm not even. Yeah. I don't even need to practice it. I'm like, what?
You're like the live version from 2001 or
track
the
4 on all the right reasons. Not a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Chris would be going up to the guitarist, being like, "You don't know these songs, do you?"
Yeah.
No,
really, that's what you're going with?
No, you can't smoke in here.
Yeah. I mean, that might have been part of it. Zappa music is such highly, esteemed stuff in the music community. So there were other bass players that technically could have done it. I know there were others on that audition. But yeah, so somehow it just all came together, and then me knowing the stuff, or at least being familiar with it, I didn't know how to play that many of them on bass, but I could sing you the song. I knew the progression of the tune. So the rest of the guys in the band, pretty much to a person, other than me and Joe, the drummer, were more like what you're talking about, where Dweezil would be like, all right, well, let's start working on the Black Page or Florentine Pokin or some of these like more complex songs. And Joe and I would just kind of start playing it immediately. Oh, you mean this one? And the other guys in the band would be like,
because
like we got to go home and listen to this for the first time tonight. And it's in 1916 and has a million different parts and is 10 minutes long. And I'm like, oh, the one that goes la 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 la,
but that song though, the song might not be in your hands, but it's in your head. Like you already, and that's the problem for me. I need to when I'm learning material, I've got to get it in here, and it's got to really be burrowed in here before I can even sit and play it. Otherwise, I'm just fighting an uphill battle. It's so hard.
It's like learning lyrics. Like someone could say like, "Oh, what's the lyrics to this song from Tangled?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. You play that song. I'm singing the words. I know them.
Yes.
I know it all."
Yes. Yeah, you know the bridge too.
Bits
Yeah,
of
totally.
films. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was very much how I was with the Zappa stuff. Is like, I could just start singing you the whole thing, and I could also do what we were saying again about the Nickelback thing. Oh, do you want the '84 live version or the album version from '77? Because the '84 is more of like a jacked up ska kind of thing. You know, Frank was constantly messing with his own arrangements. So some of that deeper knowledge definitely helped, I think.
That's so cool that you were a fan and then got to
do
it, you know? That's awesome. I mean, there must have been several moments in your career. Like that sounds like a real, like, oh my God, pinch me kind of moment, you know? Like, I wonder if there are any more of those moments that happened throughout your career, because you've shared the stages with like Steve Vai, Zach Wilde, like all sorts of like huge cats.
Yeah.
What other moments made you step back and be like, holy shit, here I am?
He's right there. Zach Wilde is right there.
Yeah,
he's
seriously.
Massive.
Yeah, and a sweetheart. He's a big teddy bear. I love that.
I know my friend interviewed him recently and was just like, "What was Zach Wilde like?" Because that was my like childhood. Him and James Hetfield were like my favorite guitarists growing up.
Okay.
I was like, "What was Zach Wilde like?" And the first thing my friend Matt was like, "He smells so nice." and he's really lovely, but it was like, gave him a hug and was like, "You don't smell like a brewery. You smell lovely."
Yeah, no, he's really an amazing person. That would be a big one. Like some of those moments with that Generation X thing, where I'm just like, I'm the one bass player for all of these guys. Like, what the hell is happening right now? Okay, and Steve Vai I met through Zappa. He had played in that initial lineup of Zappa Plays Zappa. And it took a 10-year period between when he was in that 2006 and when we started Generation X 2016. And so I had been in the back of his head. He had been through a couple bass players in his own band. And I wasn't right for that. And I think he and I would both agree with that, honestly. But for this whole gotta cover so many bases at once and be supportive and not take any of the spotlight because there's already 5 headliners on that stage. You know, that was pretty incredible. Another one, just because you brought it up, of the pinch me things, was when with Weasel's band, we were opening for Return to Forever on one of the last tours that I did with them. And we also opened for Dream Theater, which was super cool. But Return to Forever with Chick, Stanley Clarke, Al DeMula, no, not Al DeMula, Frank Gambale, Jean-Luc Ponty, and who was the drummer? The original drummer for, it's escaping me right now. How dare I? And Chick would sit in with us enough that it wasn't, holy crap, Chicorea's sitting with us tonight. Oh my God, what am I going to do? It was like, oh, cool, Chick's sitting in with us again tonight. And the way that he would approach, yeah, exactly. Really, we gotta let this hack take another solo. I mean, like, it was like, you know, the fact that I wasn't freaking out and going pinch me, I think was as much kind of a big moment where it was like, oh, this is the 3rd time I've now played with Chick, and I kind of know where he's going to go with it. No, I don't. I absolutely don't know where he's going, because he doesn't know where he's going to go with it. And he was another just incredibly inspiring person, because every time he touched that keyboard, he wanted something new to happen.
Oh,
it wasn't licks. It was. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like, it literally, watching him every night, I'd be like, I'd want to hear him repeat himself. I'd want to be like, oh, that's that Chick Corea lick that he does. You know, we all have them. Watching Stanley Clarke every night, also amazing. Stanley Clarke has some licks that he returns to that you kind of want to see Stanley Clarke do if you're going to go see him. And then he has parts where it's a beautifully improvised thing. Chick was 100% improvised, like all the time, as far as I could tell. And it still is, you know, this is a long time ago, and it's still incredibly inspiring. And then the last day of tour, we did a big old everybody on stage jam on School Days. And I had to then take a solo after Stanley Clarke on School Days. And that was a full blown, like, somebody pinch me. Like, this isn't happening. I'm not awake. This is a strange, bizarre dream made by eating too much cheese late at night or something. Like, I really have to go lick for lick with Stanley Clark right now. And there's footage of it somewhere online, and I recently posted something about it, and I watched it again. I was like, yeah, I did okay. I did okay.
I'm definitely playing.
Yeah.
I'm definitely there. Yeah, I'm present for sure.
I think I'd want to wake up in that moment. I'd be like, oh my God.
Really?
Oh my God.
Yeah, really. Like right when they point to you, I'd be like, okay, come on.
That is one
right before the monster eats you.
One pentatonic lick away from being a nightmare, not a dream.
Yeah.
We're in E flat.
Yeah. Wait, what? Yeah.
Dude, I absolutely love that story. And speaking of things that I absolutely love, I'm going to take this moment to give a shout out to our wonderful, wonderful Tier 3 Patreon supporters. So, for those that don't know, in the link in the descriptions, you can go and join our Patreon. That is where it's like the paid club to come just hang out, and be cool. We've got 3 tiers on there. One tier is just to give us a little tip jar every month and say, thanks very much for what you're doing. And
just the tip. Thank you.
Just the tip. Yeah, we should have named them.
Just the tip. Brackets,
yeah, nice.
It doesn't count.
Nice. Tier number 2 is basically you get a little bit of bonus content, all right? Every single week we record an episode. After this episode, we're going to dive in and do some extra content with Pete. Doing extra content with Pete behind a paywall. That's,
It is exactly what you think it is.
Wing. and tier number 3 is all of the above, but also you get a shout out and you get entered into monthly gear giveaways. And I've not told you, Chris, but I have got the next giveaway item with me.
I was just about, as you were saying that, I was thinking, hang on a minute. Jonny has not told me what we're giving away. Imagine if it's something I want. It's always something I want.
Who wouldn't want this? It's this CD. No. So, first of all, I'm going to give a shout out to the people that currently have the chance of winning what I'm going to unveil. So those lovely Tier 3 members are Daniel McColgan, Kim Lidman, Frank Bethel, Travis Williams, Kaddish D. Radish, Eric Molyneux, Charles Johnson, Dean Gordon, Daryl Hazelhurst Jevons, Duncan Watson, Emily Gonzalez, Alan Wadey, Alexander Shawn, Ethan Eichhorn, Justin A., Jonas on bass, Yost Crone, Mark W., and Brett Linkowski. Thank you, you wonderful, beautiful Tier 3 members. If you want to be in that list, make sure you click the link in the description to sign up today. Chris, would you mind filling for 2 moments whilst I grab the next giveaway?
Yeah, but now I've got absolutely no idea what to talk about. All things of any merit have completely left me. Are you ready to?
I'm back. So that was perfect filling. That was amazing.
I was literally scrambling, going, "What absolutely terrible question can I ask Pete that has nothing to do with bass whatsoever?"
Yeah.
So here we go. We will be giving away next. Can't really see it. Oh my God, this is really awkward with all my cables. So this right here is an early mid-2000s Schecter CV4. Yeah, it's another bass that we're doing a giveaway for this month's giveaway. It could be pedals, it could be other bits of gear. This time it's a biggie. It's a bass. This is a really cool bass. You've got these 2 humbucking pickups, but you'll see in the light, they kind of look like dual Ps where it's split. And that's what we've got here because it's a completely passive bass, but what we've got is a master volume, master tone, pickup selector switch, and then 2 mini toggle switches, and that is for each pickup to change them from humbucking mode to series in parallel, and then also in single coil. So humbucker in series in parallel and single coil. So it means you can get such a insane plethora of tones out of this without having any batteries or preamp involved. Very, very cool indeed. Big fan. It plays incredibly well. The neck is like this satin finish on the back. It's really, really nice. Sadly, it just doesn't get played enough by me. So it's going up in the giveaway, baby.
What a
very,
cool way
very
to,
nice indeed.
To upcycle your stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
We're just making our way through Johnny's garage 1 month at a time.
I should do that, man. I got a couple in here that I probably don't need anymore. But then as soon as you get rid of it, you're like, where did
I can't sell things, but luckily I don't buy a lot of things either, so I'm kind of lucky in that way. So I'm happy that I'm very much a one in, one out kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I seem to be a 2 in, 1 out kind of person at the moment.
5 in, none out.
Yeah. So if you want to be in the chance of winning this, make sure you click the link in the description to go or head to patreon.com/In the Pocket Podcast, where you can be in the chance of winning this beautiful bass. Oh my God, I've got stuck.
I'm going to leave him here. We're going to enjoy this dead air. Let's just enjoy
more filler. Yeah.
Let's just enjoy the tension. Let's just sit. Everyone, make some silence.
Oh my God.
Falling over.
Sorry, I got stuck. I've just bashed it to hell, trying to put it back. So
it's broken now, everyone.
Pre-relict.
Yeah, exactly.
Pre-relict. Pre-loved.
Yeah.
Preloaded. Sweet. Awesome. Well, speaking of, whilst we're on the topic of some gear, Pete, I believe you sent us something to listen to for today's version of That Tone You Own. This is one of my favorite segments where we get to listen to a guest sample of their sound or tone that they've been enjoying recently, and then we can talk about it, what it was for, the gear that was used, etc., etc. So I'm going to pause right now, and we're going to have a listen to it now. Love it. Super solid. Well, hey, it was clear. It was clean.
Mm-hmm.
It was supportive.
It was supportive. It sounded
cool.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Pete, with that piece that you sent across, can you tell us a little bit more about what it was for? And then we'll talk about the gear.
Sure. Yeah, that was, you kind of hit me with that last minute. And I really like that idea, actually, because these days, and part of the Zappa thing too was, and we were making jokes about it, isolated tracks, right? Being able to hear just the bass from something and realize, and this is what happened with the Zappa stuff, the tone is not what you think the tone is, right? When you hear it in the mix, it sounds like bass. It's, it's
big,
kind of low
boomy,
end and
loads of low ends.
Yeah, right. And then when you solo it up, and this happens so often with some of the Zappa stuff, it's really almost more clickier, and you hear a lot more attack. It's a lot clankier, and it's really kind of amazing. And I tell my students all the time, especially for some of the more like classic rock tunes, if you're really struggling, or just for the educational value, look up, Ramble On bass isolated. Or anything like that. And a lot of times that stuff's up there, and it's the educational aspect of that is are they playing the notes that you think that they're playing? Or is there some weird psychology thing happening there? Are you playing too many notes in comparison to what's actually there? Are you playing too few? But then also the tone thing. So I think this is a really kind of cool idea of going, so what I sent you is one of two. I did a bunch of stuff for Vinnie Moore's last album, the guitar player, and really groovy, rocky stuff. I actually really love playing on his record. This is about 4 years ago now. And when I track, like most bass players, I'll send them one clean DI tone and one tube kind of messed up tone. I think that I'm pretty sure that was through the one that we just heard was through the Valve Drive Plus, the EBS, with the it's basically a distortion pedal with a tube in it. But I use that as an amp killer all the time, and it's really kind of amazing. There is some dirt on it. It's not the cleanest of the clean, in terms of that word. But that sort of that extra grit, and then you combine that with the super clean one, and then you let their producer do whatever they want with it. But that tune in general, there's a lot of cool like unison riffs and all this stuff. But the big thing that I'm trying to do again is ends of notes, spaces in between notes, not having like, a lot of times when we let up on the fret, there can be a little click there and all that stuff. And for a big loud rock tune, you don't have to worry about it as much, but it really can make the difference again. And this is my whole new thing is bass playing is a lot about presence versus absence, right? We're either playing and you're aware of it, or we're not playing and you're aware of that. You don't necessarily hear every single note that we play. And that's a little bit of an ego blow to be like, wait a minute, I'm practicing all these notes, all his chops, all my scales, and people aren't really hearing it. It's like, well, they are, but only when it really joins up with everything else the way it's supposed to. So when I approached Vinny's stuff, he was very loose. He was like, kind of do whatever you want with it, man. And I'm like, I need a little more information than that. I can't just start from nothing. So, you figure out, okay, what's a unison riff that I want to do? What's some groovy stuff? What's some kick drum stuff that I want to do? And you find kind of your path through all of that. So that was sort of just an arbitrary, okay, this is what I do when I play on people's studio records kind of thing. I'll give them, hopefully what they're looking for ultimately, but still maintaining some of my voice and what I would like, to hear on the record and what I think will blend best with everybody. But ultimately we got to know that's not our ultimate decision. There is someone else above us, after us, who's going to go, I don't like his distortion tone. Let's take his clean one, run it through whatever plugin that we use for everybody else. And then that's it. That gets a little scary because then you're like, oh, so I just sound like everybody else? Is that what you're telling me? So finding your ways of putting your fingerprints on things that stay there, no matter what happens after it, that's pretty crucial too, while still delivering what your client is paying you to do.
Is there anything you've picked up in the sort of any tips you've picked up along the way to sort of help with that? Mainly what you were saying about things that maintain your identity or like your stamp on the song, but still at the same time don't ruin. Let's just call it ruin what you've been hired to do.
Yeah, or the relationship too. Because that's a big one too. There's trust here, right? These people are trusting me to not screw this up, and all of that, or make it about me, So yeah, there's little things like that. You do have to remember that they're hiring you, right? They could hire anybody else. And so there is something to be said for making sure that you put something in there that they wouldn't have thought of. Hopefully you're doing that already just by the virtue of your being hired to play bass on this, right? That they did not have a bass part. Now they do. Or if they did, it wasn't played by a bass player or something, it's played on keys or crappy guitar bass or something. So a lot of times I'll go simpler than what their demo was. Again, less is more, so cliche, but I'll also do this thing. And this is something the one conversation I ever had with Tony Levin, he gave me some of the best career advice to the point where I've been waiting to talk to him again. And I tried to do it recently and it was like, oh, hey, Tony. And then he kind of kept walking because he had other people. It was not his fault. It was fully, I pulled it at the wrong time. But I was like, for years now, I've been like, man, when I talk to Tony Levin, I've got this great story right here in my back pocket.
Oh, gee. But
I was talking to him years and years ago. And it was when all of us had kind of started doing more of this remote session stuff. He obviously was leading the charge for it because everybody wants Tony Levin on their record. And he goes, I don't even know how it came up, but he goes, yeah, I kind of ran into this thing with these clients where I realized I had to give them a limit of what I was going to give back or else this could go on forever. And I was like, I had already had that happen where I kept sending takes and they'd be like, I don't know, can you make it more, orange or something? And I'm like, oh, Jesus, what does that mean? Okay, here's a guess. And then, your hourly rate is going down and your per track rate is going down if you're spending more and more time on these things. Right. And we don't want to think about it like that. We want to think of it like art. Right. And not we're on the clock and punching in and everything. But it's a business, and we got to remember that. And it's one of the hardest things of musicians in the world. It's why we've been stepped on so many times by the industry. Is we're like, well, we like what we do, and we want to make cool art. So but with Tony, he goes, okay. So I did it where I give them the price that I quote them is for 3 takes. I'll do the first take, which is, and he said it, which is almost invariably way fewer notes than they're looking for. Right. But that's what I'm thinking is perfect for it. Then I'll do a second take, responding to whatever notes they give me. Almost always more notes, more activity in the part. And then I'll do a third one to fix whatever else or throw some ideas that maybe they wanted me to try or that I want to try or anything like that. And after that third one, if they haven't gotten what they want out of me, that's not my fault. That's their fault. It means they don't know how to talk to a musician. They're not giving me the materials that I need to give them what they're asking for. And my brain blew out the back of my head because I had struggled with this with a few pretty low level clients already. And now to this day, when someone asks me to play on the record, even if they're like, oh, well, I'll just take 1 take. I'm like, no, you'll get 3. And this is the price because I want you to be happy. I want me to be happy. I want you to have the options. And so I've stuck to that every day since then. And it really does help. And if you lay that out ahead of time, some of these people who may not be so used to this world are like, oh, yeah, okay. I understand that, right? Like this is about your time. This is about getting what I want out of you. So let me really think about this, and a lot of times they'll go away and be like, oh, I'm not really, what I had would not have fulfilled what you're asking for. Right. They're like, oh, I do have to go write a scratch bass part for this now to do that. And I'll be so glad that they did, because like I said, you hear something that's just like some chords or a guitar part. And you're like, not only could the bass part be anything for this, the bass note could be anything for this. It's not necessarily the bottom note of that chord. Maybe it's, we're doing some inversion stuff here, so having something there for me to go off of and then feed into those 3 takes. That's really been something that I literally use every day.
That is such good advice, I'd say.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Well,
He's basically been on the podcast now.
He doesn't need to come on now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't ask me to get him because he's...
You'll be no help.
Yeah, I'll be like, hey,
But that makes absolute total sense. And we as musicians can be, just like you mentioned, really guilty of not thinking about these kind of things because we almost don't think of ourselves as tradespeople, like a plumber or an electrician but what you're saying there comes up a lot in freelance video editing or freelance photography, where they'll say you'll get free, or in fact, what's a great example? I completely just forgot about it. Engineers, producers, people you hire to mix your band.
Yep.
They always say to you, like, everyone I've ever personally hired has always gone, you get mix 1, and then there's 2 revisions. And usually, in my personal experience, we've been done by the first round of revisions.
Yeah, because you're forced to be like, right, well, I don't want to have to pay more. So
exactly, because we've always gone and look, and I've been very lucky where I've the people I've hired for bands I've been in, where I've been paying for people to mix, have been like, oh well, mix 1 was pretty much what we wanted. However, that backing vocal is too loud on this song.
Right. Yeah, it's small things that you're fixing.
Super little things, whereas you can easily fall into that trap, as you've so mentioned, where, this is really good, but for the bridge, could you maybe go up the octave? Or can we get a bit of slap? And it's like, now you just want me to give you a million things for you to just comp later on. And that's inefficient for you, because if you're getting paid whatever, and you go, oh, this is brilliant. It's, I don't know, let's pretend it's £200 for an afternoon's work. Fantastic rate of return. But now if it's £200 for a week's work, not the best rate of return.
Yeah.
No.
And especially, and the other thing about it, and it's kind of why I've liked, as much as I love being able to do it right here in this room in my underwear, if I feel like it, is I've actually really liked going back to studios and having the producer and or artist right there to go, yes, no, shitty, great. you know, like rather than email, wait. To the point where a lot of it, especially when you use an outboard pedals, and I don't have the most organized studio here. So if I'm using outboard pedals, that has to then sit on my desk through a couple lessons, through rehearsing for another gig. I don't touch those knobs. Don't even look at them. Like everything's got to stay exactly the same. And it might be days before I hear back from that person.
Yeah.
So again, that's a whole other aspect to it.
And then you
too.
get the dreaded, "Hi, Pete, can we jump on a quick call?" To talk
Right,
about
like, oh God,
no,
yeah.
All of this reminds me of a graphic design friend I have who will like do this same thing with revisions, etc. But if he's designing someone a logo, he'll give them the one that the good one, and also he'll put in a rubbish one, like purposely bad, to be like,
right, yeah. In comparison,
you're not gonna pick this one. You don't want this one. This is the one you want.
Right.
Yeah. But
that's what I mean. Like every other freelance artist knows this, right? Every graphic designer, every web designer, they go, here's 3 options immediately, right? Whether you ask for it or not. When I did the art for my EP a couple of years ago, my buddy was sending me all these ones, and in general, you're right. Like the first 1 or 2, I'm like, that's it. But the other color combinations that he did, or like, different framing or something like that, I was like, that's actually really cool that you gave me that, but it makes me much more sure that I like the one that I like.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's one of those things that, yet another business thing that us musicians screw up all the time that everybody else does on a daily basis.
And like you said, we're here for the art. That's what we want to be the best it can be.
But it could bite you.
But you've got to be smart about it. Well, Pete, thank you so much. There's been so much knowledge and like bits of advice here that I've taken on. I'm sure everyone at home has definitely done so as well. Before we finish off, we are going to put you in the hot seat
Let's do it.
and give you some one-word answers that we want for these questions before we finish things off, and then go and slide off into our Patreon section. So I am ready with my list of questions. Chris, are you ready?
I am ready with mine.
Oh my
boy.
gosh. But before we do, I do have one question that will lead into one of the questions. Is there a particular like pop culture thing or like movie franchise or something like that that you're a big nerd about? For me, it's Star Wars.
Star Wars is a pretty big one. I guess my big one would be the Muppets. Like big one. Mentioning moving to California and all that stuff. The Muppet movie is about finding your friends and going to Hollywood and getting into show business to make millions of people happy. And that's like kind of, without me noticing it, that's been the way I've lived my life. Like I've picked up a bunch of really weird friends along the way who all have very strange talents and are all, kind of part of our same thing. And, and our whole plan is to make people happy. That's all we want to do.
Okay.
And there you
We've
go.
got
So
it.
the Muppets is what
We've got it. Perfect.
I
Okay.
love the Muppets so much. Anyway,
Chris,
go on. Yes.
can you do the honors and kick off these quick fire questions?
Question 1, Pete. Pick or fingers? Do not elaborate. Just answer.
50-50.
No, you're not allowed.
Fingers then.
Thank you.
Okay. Question number 2. Active or passive?
Passive.
Question number 3. Rounds or flats?
Rounds.
Ooh. Question number 4. 4-string or 5?
4.
Would you rather be on in-ears or wedges?
In-ears.
Number 6. And this might be difficult. P or J?
P.
Number 7. What is your desert island base?
That one. The fretless Lakeland Bob Glaub P bass.
That is
With the maple neck.
That is
Very well.
so nice. That is so nice. What a natural P bass now.
No.
Number 8. What is the best bass effect?
Envelope filter. Do you mean like specific one or type of effect?
Type's fine.
Type?
Go specific
Okay,
if you want.
I'd say envelope filter by far. Yeah, I'm really loving the fuzz, the funk face, the Ashdown funk face. That one's a very different version of an envelope filter, but in general, envelope filter.
Wonderful.
Very well. Number 9, please give us an unpopular bass opinion or like a hot take.
I went into this recently. Jocko does not need all the worship.
Not bad.
There are many other bass players that were contemporaries of his, even not even like newer ones, that are worth the exact same amount of focus and analysis and inspiration to be drawn from.
Yeah. Totally
I like
fair.
this.
Now, the final question.
Number 10. What Muppets character would be the best at bass?
Well, Floyd, I mean, is the bass player, right? Like that's pretty standard, and he sort of fits, that whole thing. The other one would be, in terms of just like the guy who's there to help out, would be Ralph, the piano playing dog. He's kind of, because everybody in the Muppets, that's why I love them so much. Every single Muppet character through their entire history, Sesame Street, all of them, they're all pretty terribly flawed characters. Every single one of them. They have something about them that makes them awesome and something about them that's like maybe not it gets in their own way or whatever, And Ralph seems to be the one who's like the most stable, doesn't really have much issues, and, is just kind of there to play a pretty song on the piano whenever anybody needs him to.
Yes. Love this. We always say that Chris and I are Chris's beaker.
Okay.
and I'm Dr. Benson.
And you're honeydew. Nice.
My mum calls me.
Yeah,
my
I
mum
can
calls
see
me
that.
Beaker. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty close. Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
I used to have a bald head. If and when I go back to that eventually, then that will be our Halloween costume sorted.
I was going to say, you guys got a tandem Halloween
crush
costume.
Halloween. And my hair used to be a lot more. I've grown a mullet, but my hair used to be a lot more like. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's kind of gingery too, isn't he?
He is.
Speaker, a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A man of few words, unlike me.
Yes.
I'm so happy you said the Muppets. Normally it's like a Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I
like those too.
Yeah, we've had Back to the Future. Like someone said, like something to be Disney. Mine would be like I'm a massive Batman nerd. But the Muppets,
yeah,
yes,
that's a good one.
Love this. Fantastic. Well, gents, that we have come to the conclusion of the main episode. Before we close out, if you are listening on your chosen listening platform of choice, be that Spotify, be that Apple Podcasts, you can rate this podcast a 5-star rating, and that helps us something to do with algorithms to help reach more wonderful listeners just like you. So make sure you do that. It really helps the show to reach more people, and it's totally free to do. What else can you do for free? You can go and follow us on Instagram at In The Pocket Pod, or you can, or not just exclusively. Gosh, imagine that. You can go and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you didn't already, you can see our beautiful faces here today. In fact, I think Pete might have some of the best hair that we've had on the podcast, I would say. So,
oh, wow. Thanks.
So it's fantastic. Yeah. So make sure you go and see it in the flesh and go and watch the episode, give it a like, etc., etc. I've already rammed on about Patreon quite a lot, but I'm going to do it again. Patreon.com/In The Pocket Podcast. Make sure you go and check it out. Even if you just want to leave us a one-off tip or give us a monthly donation, we appreciate all the financial support and all of the non-financial support as well. You guys have been fantastic at showing your support recently, so just keep it up. Thank you so much. Pete, where can people find you on the internet?
At Pete Griffin Bass, at everything, and that's also my website, petegriffinbass.com. So yeah, if you want to hire me for an album or lessons, which I absolutely love doing, I really love teaching. I've got students everywhere, all over the planet. It's really one of my favorite things to do. It's not just like supplemental, like I know some musicians do. It's my mom was a teacher, and so I generally have that just sort of in me. So yeah, my website, my Instagram, all that fun stuff. I will be on the road in the next couple months and stuff. So yeah. Check it out.
Amazing. Follow along for the journey. Chris, my dear, where can people find you?
You can find me quite literally everywhere under That Guy on Bass. Jonny, where can the wonderful people find you?
Simple as it gets, just Jonny Dibble. That's my name on YouTube, and mostly Instagram is where I'm hanging out. So you can go and do that. We are now going to head on to Patreon, where we're going to dive a little bit more into some gear-focused questions, I think, and get real nerdy about this. So if you like what you hear, make sure you go and check that out as well. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Tatty bye.